Wow, it is nearing the biggest game of the season, almost the biggest game of the silver tenure. We won't go into that argument because we've already had it on the group chat this morning, Joe. Joe Sansom, this is it. It's Fulham Palace week. The international break
Yeah,
is basically over, and we are just days away from that quarterfinal.
I have to say I haven't enjoyed having, well, at this point just over a week, but nearly 2 weeks to just mull over this game and think of all the implications. Palace fans will be in the same boat, but even worse because they've had 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because obviously they were meant to play the weekend that we played Tottenham. They didn't have a game. Huge game. Yeah, we've debated, where it ranks, but we all sort of were in agreement that it's within the top 3 to 5 games of importance on an individual basis of Silver's tenure already. I think the fact that it leads us to Wembley just makes it even more so. The Everton quarter-final in the Carabao Cup last season was a wonderful evening to get into the semi-finals, but the prestigious nature of the FA Cup, you've got to take that into account. And the fact that we'll be at Wembley, there's a lot of debate about, we mentioned this last week even, about, should semi-finals be at Wembley? The fact of the matter is they are. We want a day out at Wembley. We want to be in the pub from 10 a.m. on a sunny morning in April until whenever the game will kick off, probably late afternoon, I imagine, almost reminiscent of that Villa game. Who could be our opponents if we both get through. But it's one of these games, Jack, where there's been a lot of build-up. The draw happened at the start of March,
Yeah.
immediately after that United game. And I think both sets of fans, their immediate reaction was, that will do, in terms of Palace fans will be thinking they can beat us. We're thinking we can beat them. It's one of the ties that is more of a 50-50 call, you would say, right now. How are you feeling going into it?
And insanely nervous. Like I don't even want to. Rarely does a game play on my mind as much as this one has. Even with the Man United game, it was a sense of dread because of just narratives that we've been through at Old Trafford before. But in terms of the consequences of either winning or losing this can be so incredibly drastically brilliant and so incredibly drastically terrible, which is making me so nervous. There's so many components to this fixture that's making me nervous. One thing that I've been thinking about lately is if we were to win, obviously it'd be great, but I'd have such a keen interest in those other three ties. I'd be watching them like a hawk,
Yeah.
over the next day and a half. I love the fact I don't like the fact it's the early game, but I do like the fact it's the early game because there's so many like pros and cons to this. If we win, we get the whole day to sort of drink it in and celebrate and like I say, watch those other three games. If we lose, it's going to be absolutely terrible. Luckily for you, you get to sort of just walk home and bury your head in the sand and forget about it. Unfortunately, I've got to stay behind and do all the post-match stuff as well. So that's just sort of a. And normally, when we lose a game, by the time I've left the ground, I'm fairly calm about what has happened. But I think in this case, it's going to be like bitterly disappointed. Um, the permutations, just the whole fact that the next day it's Mother's Day and the whole family are going to be there, and I know for a fact that there's 3 Fulham fans in the house and there's 1 Palace fan in the house, and I don't want James to come over and lord it over us. A trip to
Is that a
Wembley,
sign? 3-1?
3-1. Yeah, the fact of the matter is he's a Palace fan who goes to like less than 1 game a season. I think he's been to
Yeah.
2 all season. So he's not like a hardcore ultra who's going to be dressed in all black in the Putney End on Sunday. He's just a fair weather sort of Palace fan. And I think that makes it even worse in my opinion. Anyway, I'm sure there's lots of components to everyone's individual lives and as to how this could be and could be the worst or the best day of their life, or not day of their life, but best day of the season. Let's get into the nitty gritty of it because Palace have got Mateta back.
Yeah.
A few comments were made as to what Fulham and how Fulham should deal with Mateta on Saturday. Look, it's going to be a big game, and Eze scoring last night for England gives him a little bit of a confidence boost. Mark Gahey played as well and was fairly solid, albeit Latvia didn't really do much. Wharton, of course, I was keeping an eye on the under 21s. I don't know if he came on or not, but I think the under 21s won 3-2 last night for England. So
Yeah.
a clean bill of health on Palace's side in terms of players that you wouldn't like, players that you wouldn't want to get injured have not got injured. And I think Fulham, I think maybe have like one or two more players still to play. I think Lukic might play tonight. I'm not quite sure actually. Today is Tuesday for context. How are you feeling?
Terrible. Partly because I've made a rod for my own back
Yes.
on X.com, or the Bird app, as previously known.
Mhm.
I was a little bit bored, tried to rile up a few Palace fans, as have several other Fulham fans, and succeeded. It's gone both ways. The sort of gist have been just very immature jokes about us saying that Palace haven't sold out, and then Palace fans saying, well, it doesn't really matter because the home end's going to be red and blue. Well, I wouldn't count anyway, because I'm sure the home end would just be black in terms of clothing, because I don't think they really do club colours. They're too cool for that. So I've been told. At the end of the day, it's a massive game. I'm really nervous for it, and I'm sure that Palace fans are as well. We're both going into this knowing that there are some very strong teams left in the FA Cup, but equally, both thinking that we're on a sort of trajectory where we're not going to get many better chances to win a cup than this, on the basis that the strongest team on paper left in the competition are Man City, and they just haven't been anywhere near their best this season. The type of Man City that in a one-off game they could slip up. In a normal season, you don't think that's even a possibility, really. You almost think you've got to have the absolute game of your life to get a point against them, which is something that Fulham have not managed to do, in fairness, in recent years. I think Palace arguably actually have had a few good results against City, both home and away, at the Etihad. Ultimately, the game that will be playing in both fans' minds right now is the game that happened just over a month ago,
Yeah.
at the time of kickoff, when Palace came and did a job on us. Now, there's been a lot of sort of retrospective looking at that game. I've seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, Palace battered us that day," etc. They didn't. We were absolutely second best. Palace came with a very solid game plan, didn't create a magnitude of chances, definitely deserved the points before anyone jumps in and thinks I'm being biased or anything. They did. We didn't create anything on the day, never looked like scoring. But ultimately, I think that was Palace at their best. I think that they obviously showed that again a couple of days later against Villa when they won 4-1 and were even more clinical.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the way that Palace play, I don't think they're going to come and dominate. They're going to come and sit back and be very comfortable in their sort of mid-block formation and basically play on the break. And they're fantastic at it. And that's why they've been doing really well basically since the first 2 months of the season. I respect the way they play, and I respect a lot of the players they have. But if Fulham can play like we did against Nottingham Forest, who do play kind of a similar system to Palace, maybe slightly more defensive even, then there is a chance for us here to get through. And that's the thing. We can think back to that game, but it was one game. Either side of that, we had good performances against Forest, and we had a good performance as well at Wolves a couple of days later. Cup competition, anything can happen. It's ever so slightly different to league fixtures anyway, because it's winner takes all. And you look at the game at Old Trafford where Man United have been quite poor. First half, they turn up and they were quite intense early on, as the home side. I remember last season, similarly, in the quarterfinal stage, United were very, very good against Liverpool and ended up getting through. And that was a massive contrast to the league games that had been going on around that time for both of those teams. So form sort of goes out the window. It's a one-off game. It's massive, massive cliche, but it is ultimately true and based on events that have happened in previous seasons for most clubs in the country. I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to be a top atmosphere. I see that Fulham have now a little bit more up of the Putney end, to just give a slight more presence at that end, which will be good, because otherwise, Palace, for all my mockery, I'm sure they'll have great support there on the day, taking up the majority of the Putney end that was given to them. And yeah, it should be a great atmosphere. I'm very much hoping that the Hammersmith end is all standing and we can get behind the team and make our home advantage count. I'm hoping that the club will put some sort of initiatives out there, whether it's like scarves like Newcastle did at Wembley, whether it's flags like we did against Liverpool in the Carabao Cup last year. I'm hoping not clappers, but I'm also a realist. I think clappers will be there.
Yeah.
And some sort of pyrotechnics, as you've said, Jack, and has been there before. But I'm hoping for a fantastic atmosphere and really, really excited for it. But the nerves about the game are getting me big time because, on our day, either of these teams could go and comfortably beat the other. We saw that at Selhurst Park back in November.
Yeah.
I know they had a few players out that day. We saw it at the end of February at home to Palace. So on our day, this could easily be 3-0 either way, genuinely, if either team plays to their top level. Equally, it could be a draw and go into extra time. These teams are quite evenly matched, in my opinion. And on the day could both take each other down easily. I think that the fact of the matter is both teams will have basically their first 11 out there for this game as it stands. Touch wood, no more injuries for Fulham during this international break. And yeah, really, really excited. But when it comes to the starting 11, Jack, we mentioned this last week, and I don't even your opinions changed since then or mine, but there's so many things to consider based on the fact that it's a one-off shootout game and could go all the way. And by that I mean players like Willian probably couldn't last 120 minutes.
Yeah.
Players like Jimenez, you probably want to be involved if it eventually does go to a penalty shootout. That being said, he's had a fantastic international break.
Yeah, this is so tricky from like a tactical point of view in terms of how this game might go, in terms of the longevity of the game. Because Muniz scored last time out against Spurs, very well taken goal, and was brilliant when he came on. Jimenez had an okay game, and then goes to Mexico and does like the most insane things. I think he scored 4 goals, and one of them was a free kick. One of them won the Nations League in the last minute, like complete clutch merchant from the penalty spot. And but you base it off that, and you go, well, Jimenez surely needs to start. He's a player in form. He scored 4 goals. Blah blah blah. But I agree with you. If you want someone who's going to be there, this is really difficult. If you want someone who's going to be there at the end of the game to be there for penalty shootouts, Jimenez 100%. But if you want a player who's going to give you a little bit more energy into going into extra time, you'd want Muniz. I believe so. It's a really fine balance. I don't think we should go into this game necessarily thinking, well, if it goes to pens, this should happen. It should be a case of, well, this is how we're going to try and win the game in 90 minutes. And I think off that basis, I think that the calls have been for Muniz to start. I think logically, I'm just going to agree with that. If we're in a losing situation, we're chasing a game at 70 minutes, and we bring on Jimenez, the confidence levels in myself for him to come on and make a huge difference would be lower if it was the other way around, and like we've seen in recent times. However, I think that maybe the sort of energy that Muniz brings, linking play, dropping deep from the start, could benefit us, because I think we just want a fast start against Palace. You know, like you say, we're going to try and control the game. We need to create more than what we did against Palace, or at least to create more better chances than what we did against Palace last time out. It's a really fine line. So let's go with a lineup then. Leno in goal. I think Castagna will probably play, unless we hear anything on Friday from Silva regarding Tete. I just think it's a tad too early and a big game. Albeit if he's ready, then Tuesday night against Arsenal, put him in for sure. And then we'll go Anderson, Bassi, Robinson, Berger, Lukic, Pereira, Iwobi left, Adama right, Muniz down the middle. And then for Palace, I mean, Chris Richards got a concussion, I think, in the first game for USA. I don't know if that's gonna leave him out, but I'd imagine.
I saw he was on the bench, which makes me think no.
Yeah,
for the USA's next game, so I think he's all right.
So it'll be Henderson, Richards, Gehi, Lacroix, Munoz, Mitchell, and then it'll be like Wharton, and then either Hughes or Lerma, and then Sarr, Eze, Mateta, or Nketiah.
Yeah. It's an interesting one about Mateta because obviously he's back, and and by the way, like I'm not going to sit here and like joke about his injury. Yeah, it looks quite bad, but in terms of the meal that was made of it by the media, in terms of the sort of like length of time, and oh my goodness, the interviews with him, and like don't get me wrong, look, red cards. I think even the extra ban that was given to the keeper was a bit much, in all honesty. He's back, he's fine, but equally, is he going to come in from the start? I don't know. I imagine probably. I would be quite surprised if he didn't start. But it is worth pointing out that Palace fans weren't very happy with their last performance. Yes, it was a couple of weeks ago, but that was against Ipswich, who they scraped past 1-0, and no problems with that. We didn't do it either time this season. They won 1-0. It was a Sarr goal, and it was almost like a bit of individual skill after the ball fell to him to sort of sprint into the area and chip over the goalkeeper. Very nice finish, very nice goal, but aside from that, not a great performance. So I'd be very interested to see if that encourages them, that even if Mateta's maybe not 100% ready, to put him back in to the team, because his overall link-up play with everyone else, a bit more of a confident player, a bit more of a presence than someone like Nketiah right now anyway. I mean, I completely agree with your Fulham team, by the way. I would start Muniz. Few reasons. Firstly, even though I agree with you, I want to win in 90 minutes, the penalties is in the back of my mind. There's also the fact that Jimenez has been playing over the international break. Muniz hasn't.
That's true.
He's been there the whole time with the team. He also obviously had that great cameo against Tottenham. And he's also, unless I'm forgetting something, he has started every single FA Cup match for us this season because he scored and led the line against Watford for the first half, scored twice against Wigan, obviously started at Old Trafford and flicked it on for Bassi. And then obviously this would be our fourth game in the competition this season. So I think that'll be the way around that we start the game, I think. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jimenez started. I agree with your wingers and attacking midfielder in Pereira, which I think are the only other real points of contention for Marco Silva to consider, unless there's any sort of injury news that we don't know about. I think Pereira ahead of Smith Rowe at this point in time, in terms of form, is a no-brainer. I think then you've got the flexibility of bringing Smith Rowe on during the 90, 120, however long it takes, to come on either in the attacking midfield position or drifting over towards the left where Iwobi would start. I think then the fact that on the right-hand side you've got Adama to get some pace in behind immediately probably means that Palace have to be a bit more reserved in how they start the game to avoid leaving that space in behind. I appreciate that it's normally Munoz on the right rather than Mitchell on the left. So Mitchell would probably be the slightly deeper of the wing backs anyway. But even so, it's good that it almost stops him coming forward because there's the fear of in behind Adama racing in. Then off the bench, obviously, you've also got Willian to come on, which obviously you could then shift Iwobi to the right-hand side, etc. There's several options. I agree with the team. And what I would ask from this team is a fast start. I think that we need to do our job in the crowd as well. I really do believe that these sorts of games are massively swung by the crowd. It's a one-off game, and it's simply about who does the job on the day. And if you can get behind the team, it's going to be 3,000 or 4,000 Palace fans down the other end making their mark. We need to ensure that we make the home advantage count, because a home advantage for a quarterfinal is huge, because obviously goes to extra time, it's still at home. Goes to penalties, it's still at home. You've got a 50-50 chance of it being in front of the home crowd, which is a big advantage. Maybe so we haven't seen in previous games that we played, for example, at Goodison or Old Trafford. But that's where you want to be taking the penalties. If it got to there, oh my God, I don't think my heart could take it.
I don't know.
I've got to be honest. But yeah, that's how I see us lining up as well, Jack. I completely agree. And what I want to see this time is us move the ball a lot quicker than we did against Palace last time. I want to see us be a lot more dominant in our sort of 50-50 duels. I thought we were great at that against Tottenham, but against Palace we really struggled. Bassi didn't have his finest game. Anderson was below par that day. I think they'll both want to prove a point. In particular, Anderson, for completely obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting, actually. I was reading a few Palace fans' thoughts when the draw was first made, and they were going, this is good for us because we just beat Fulham. At that point, it was just over a week ago. I think it was literally 8 days before that they'd beaten us at Craven Cottage. And they were saying this has got the horrible knack, from their point of view, of when they played Watford a couple of years ago in the FA Cup quarter-final. And that was when Watford won 2-1, got to Wembley, beat Wolves, and then lost 6-0 to Man City in the final. Yeah. But on that day in the quarter-final, Watford and Palace were going into that game with Palace. They'd already beaten them twice that season, and they'd beaten them quite routinely. So they're going into it thinking, we've already beaten this team twice. It can almost play into the hands of the team that lost the most recent encounter, with the reason being that they know what to expect from the other team. They have to mix something up, and the other team will be thinking, well, they're going to have to change things against us. We want to play the same way. We want to play how it worked a month ago, but it'll be interesting to see how Fulham set up, or if we just try and do plan A a hell of a lot better than we did last time. That felt a little bit like a after the Lord Mayor's show performance, in terms of we'd had the unbelievable performance against Forest a week earlier, and that was the best we played all season. Fans were unanimous in that. Positive socials all week, and everyone gearing up for the Palace game, thinking we're going to do this again. And as soon as the game started, flat atmosphere, flat performance, both leading to each other, and just ultimately just nothing of note from an attacking sense throughout the entire game. It has to be better than that. And by has to be better than that, I'm talking one shot on target is better than that. So,
I'm sure we will.
I would be outraged if we didn't. I would be fuming. So I think it will happen.
Would you take no shots on target, a 0-0 draw over 120 minutes and a win on penalties?
Only if the win on penalties was absolutely guaranteed. And then I'm concerned if then by that point we have had what? We've had 120 minutes and 90 minutes. We've had 210 minutes of league football against Palace with no shots on target. And then we've got 5 shots from the penalty spot. Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, as much as I like Jimenez and Willian and Sander Berger was a great penalty taker as well, I don't like that at all.
I believe out of the two teams, I have confidence that our bench can make more of a difference than theirs. You look at Willian, who just has moments of magic in him. Ryan Sessegnon, we've seen very, very recently. One of Muniz or Raul Jimenez, Tom Cairney can always come on and do something huge. Imagine TC sending us to Wembley. Oh, just imagine Harrison Reed.
Him or Sessegnon, it's just an unbelievable moment. Harrison Reed, and my Twitter's getting absolutely demolished.
Harrison Reed scores and he gives the shush and he points up to your seat.
You know what? I would completely deserve it.
Yeah.
But I'd love it. If there was an unsung hero, sort of someone that maybe just means a little bit more, it would mean so much if it was anyone. But the thing is here, Jack, is you made a great point earlier about the fact that we're the first game. Because I remember the Old Trafford game a couple of years ago. Absolutely. And I remember the fact that the draw happened just before we kicked off. Yeah. And so it's there in writing. You've got the date, you've got the kickoff time. Fulham or Man United against Brighton at this time, you'll be sat in this end of Wembley. Yeah. You can book this seat from tomorrow if you win. It's awful. Yeah. It's so much worse. Like you, I've got such a keen interest if we win on those other 3 games. I'm going to be hate watching Aston Villa. I'm going to be hate watching Man City. I don't really have too much of a preference between Brighton and Nottingham Forest. Because it's quite a 50-50 call. But those other 2, I'm there wearing my Preston shirt. I'm there wearing my Bournemouth shirt. Boscombe, back of the net, all of that sort of thing. And then we might lose to either of them, don't get me wrong. But you want the weaker teams on paper through. Yeah. They'll be thinking the same about Fulham. If they get Fulham, I'm sure they'd be happier than if they got Man City, for example. But if we lose this game, I'm not going to watch the other games.
Oh, no,
I'm not going to watch them at all. X will be deleted by the time I get to the concourse down the stairs. I'm not joking. The thing is, it can have a domino effect on the rest of the season. Then we have to go to the Emirates 3 days later. I've got my ticket just over there on the counter. I'm excited for it.
Fuck that. I'm not going to the Emirates.
Yeah, it's just one of these things where it's suddenly and we've got a lot to play for in the league, but it's the fact that you're so close to, even if it's not winning the competition, to a momentous day out, a big occasion for the club. We've been to the FA Cup semi-finals, I think, twice in our history. Correct me if I'm forgetting a third time, but when we lost at Villa Park to Chelsea when we first came up, and obviously when we got through to the final in 75, obviously we got to the semi-final then. But a day at Wembley, it's semi-final. Oh my goodness! I mean, at that point, you've got a 25% chance of winning the competition. Yeah, you've got a 25% chance. You get through the semi-final, it just has to be your day, and it would be so deflating to have to go into games against the current top 2 in Arsenal and Liverpool, knowing that now it's Europe or bust for the season. No matter how good a journey it's been, let's face it, the destination is what matters the most. And destination, we want it to be Wembley, a cup final, a cup victory, or Europe. But if it's none of those things, suddenly you look back and you think, just what could have been?
That would be the worst feeling in the world. Just a couple more points before we go. I'm convinced that if we win on Saturday, we're going to go to the Emirates and win. We just go, win. I think we'll go to the Emirates and win the game.
Yeah. If we win, I'm so confident against Arsenal and Liverpool. Yeah. It's just one of those things. And ultimately, it's silly because it's the same team playing them. But, we'll have played Palace and we'll have 90 or 120 minutes in the bodies of our first team, whereas Arsenal have no game this weekend.
That's true.
But imagine if they're going into it, their morale top, rather than, we just lost our chance of winning something. Yeah. It would just be an amazing difference. Yes, you rotate the team. Loads of players that can come in. Kenny Tete will hopefully be back. Issa Diop, ready to step in. Georgia Coenca, etc. Sessegnon, Willian, whoever doesn't start. But it's just one of those things where it's this is almost not the main moment. We had that 3 days ago.
We'll play a 5 at Arsenal, I'm sure of it. For sure. Quick fire question. If we win, yes or no? Literally just yes or no. Pitch invade.
No.
Agreed. You haven't won anything. You just.
Nope.
What are you celebrating? I think it would look silly.
For the best day of the season. But
Yeah.
at the same
Yeah.
time, no pitch invasion.
Yeah.
No pitch
I
invasion.
think Silver would be so anti that. We haven't won anything.
Imagine if we were at home on Tuesday and how angry Silver would be if we just ruined the pitch before Arsenal came, for example.
Now then, big occasions at Craven Cottage. Juventus, Hamburg, Chelsea at home, Liverpool in the Carabao Cup. Okay, we didn't win that one, but big occasions where Fulham have won. All those examples I've just read out, there's tons more. Preston at home, Luton at home. What do they all
Derby.
have in common?
Yeah. Hammersmith End standing up?
No. Well, yeah, I mean, yes, but they're all night games.
It's true.
I just don't... Like a 12-15, huge... The only early kickoffs I can think of where Fulham have really raised it was beating QPR 4-1 under Silva, beating West Brom 3-0 under Silva, and then maybe some 3 o'clocks where we beat, Man United in the sun 2-0, on Gira overhead kick. I just I associate big occasions at Craven Cottage with big nights at Craven Cottage. Brentford at home this season, incredible. Something about this 12-15 kickoff, it's not like there'll be a few flares that go off, as the teams come out like they do every week at the Cottage now, but it doesn't scream to me big occasion. However, it's the kickoff time we've been given. The fans have got to make a noise. You cannot turn up to a quarterfinal feeling hungover, feeling sleepy. Do not drink on the Friday. Don't go out. You save your energy and bring the noise at 12:15 because we have to. If I hear one chant of "Is this a library?" or "Your support is fucking shit," I'll be so upset because it's an FA Cup quarterfinal, and I just don't want us to waste the occasion by being sleepy because there's nothing more prominent than Fulham fans being sleepy at a 3 o'clock kickoff or a 12:30 or 12:15, whatever, because they're all so hungover from the night before. Bring the noise, please.
Completely agree. Completely and utterly agree. Liverpool at home a couple of years ago when we first came back up was a 12:30, and that's one of the only occasions I can think of.
Absolutely.
Because I agree with you. I was racking my brain then thinking you're completely right. That's the only one I can think of where I thought the atmosphere was very decent that day. It needs to be better than that, but it was very decent.
It was superb. It was
but
brilliant.
12:15 is an awful kickoff time atmosphere-wise, but oh my goodness. What an opportunity. We all have to do it. Get behind the team. I do strongly advise, stand up if you can in Hammersmith End, please. It makes a difference. You're more inclined to sing when you're standing up. You're more inclined to get involved. If you're in the Riverside or Johnny Haynes stand or blocks P1 and P2 of the Putney End, please do not think that it's not your job as well to get involved. I don't understand anyone coming to this game and not giving it their all inside the stadium. There are so many fans that would have loved to get a ticket for this and maybe haven't been able to or aren't free. It's such a big occasion for the club and we all need to do our part. And I'm so excited for it, Jack. I've gone from nervous to excited during this. I'm sure as soon as we stop recording, I'll go back to nervous because I'll read Twitter again. But ultimately, I can't wait for it. It's going to be a great occasion. Going to get to the cottage early doors. Hope there's some discounts on offer, as there have been all season. In fairness to the club, that's not me begging, but also it is. Because let's face it, a cheap pint is a better pint. But ultimately, it will be a great day up until kickoff, and then from there, let's see what happens.
Yeah, basically, the club would be encouraging everyone to be drinking at 11 o'clock in the morning, which is socially not acceptable. But of course, if you're a football fan, it's incredibly normal. But I have said this before: I'm not having a go at the fans at all. I'm just asking for them to bring the noise when push comes to shove. When big occasions have come around for Fulham, the fans usually turn up. The only thing that I'm sort of wary about is just the kickoff time because it's fairly sleepy. Get yourself up early. I'm going to get up really early and sort of really G myself up for it. I can't make much noise from my position, but everyone else can in the Hammersmith End, in the Johnny Haynes, in the Riverside, and in the Putney End if you're in the Putney End. Joe, we almost ended this video without giving our predictions. Let's do it.
Oh my God.
What's happening? You go first.
I'm going to go with a Fulham 2-1 win. And I'm going to say it's going to be after extra time. So I think it'll be 1-1 after 90.
I haven't actually even thought about a prediction. This is the first time I've ever thought about it. I have to back Fulham have to back them. 3. We're such. Okay. Fulham 3, Palace 1 in 90 from behind.
From behind, wow.
Which is going to be tough. Like, if we went 1-0 down, I would just think to myself, there's no way we're getting back in this.
Yeah, I can imagine the let-off for the equaliser would be immense.
But I think that the equaliser will be soft, and it won't be long after they've taken the lead. It would be within the
Okay.
5 minutes. It might be an own goal. It might be a penalty. It might be a very scrappy sort of goal down the Putney end. If we're kicking hammers with first half, I'm going home.
Genuinely, if we're shooting towards the Hammersmith end first half, then the noise has to be even bigger, and we need to make advantage of that because we need to go in ahead at half time, just because that's normally when we play our best football.
I would imagine that Palace probably won't even want to turn us around because they'll want to kick to the away fans' second half.
You imagine so, but they also might just try and do anything possible to just sort of affect. I don't know, but we'll have to see.
Do you think the club will play Viva El Fulham?
No. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be fun. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. If you come into the game, look up the song before you come, just in case.
Yeah.
Because it would be good to play. It'll be quite rubbish if they play it and no one knows the words. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was not born in 1975. I know the words because it's one of the only Fulham songs realistically out in the open world. You can hear Johnny Haynes sort of stutter his words out at the start of it. Welcome to the Fulham album, which is very funny. They could have edited that, but the song itself is great. And that's what, and I thought it's an FA Cup song. It'd be wonderful if they played it. I don't know if they will, but I'm sure whatever they play, they'll play something pre-kickoff to get everyone sort of up and ready.
I'm sure on Friday Silva will ask us to bring the noise, ask the fans to bring the noise. Obviously, Robinson, it's more evident now that Robinson's playing through pain and he's going to have surgery at the end of the season. It's almost incredibly selfless of him to be like, no, I won't go to the USA, even though we've got these huge games. I'm all in it for Fulham. I wonder whether Silva had a word in his ear, because that's what I was taught. I think I've said this last week, but no one ever. That hasn't happened with Fulham before, where someone has been like, "No, don't go on international break. The game's too big for us." So it's good to see that we're taking it seriously. Joe, that's really it for today. Any final words?
No, just sort of reiteration of what we've said. Enjoy the game if you're going or if you're watching elsewhere. If you're watching away in a pub, at home, whatever. Enjoy it, and let's hope it's a really famous day because it will be famous if we get through. No one will remember how, in terms of the specifics of if we played well, etc. Obviously, it's better if we do, but we just need to get through this game. And if we do, then we've got a day at Wembley, and I really hope that we're back here next week, Jack, planning our day. That I would love nothing more than that. And I must admit, if we do get, I'm going to be feeling emotional at the end of this game either way.
Yeah.
Either going to be really, really gutted because what an opportunity, and if that does happen, the world's not over. We will get another chance one day, but such a good opportunity, and I want to go back to Wembley. Simple as that.
Just final thing. If we win on Saturday, I'd obviously love to see you post-match. So where will you be post-match?
Oh my goodness. Well, for a start, I think the Riverside will stay open after the game. So I imagine my initial aim will be straight down there for a swift drink or two. And then I think it might be a Golden Lion day if we're through.
I'd love to watch the 5:15 in the Golden Lion with a load of happy Fulham fans.
That would be fantastic. And the 5:15 is Brighton Forest, is that correct?
Yeah, the sun's out and it's nice and warm.
I think that's absolutely
an ideal occasion. I do not want to walk past a Temperance having to go like that and listening to.
No. I'm walking in whichever direction Croydon is the opposite of at full time. And then hope I just run into as little as possible Palace fans.
Okay. I think we've bled this one dry. We're looking forward to it. We're both back in Fulham to get to Wembley. Can't believe I'm saying those words. Let's hope they come true. We play Arsenal very, very quickly after that, and then Liverpool. Thank you so much for watching. Please bring the noise, enjoy it, and get us to Wembley. Please, Fulham. And I was doing an outstanding finish there, but there's the outro, so didn't time it perfectly. Come on, Fulham. We will see you next time.